the assumptions that we live under about what a human is almost in a psychological sense need to be reformulated. We all know that there's a chemical basis and a social basis behind all human behavior. This is nothing new. What has started to change, however, in the past maybe 10, 15 years is just the degree to which we are starting to understand the depth of this mechanism and what is bubbling up to the surface for more and more people as this body of research is becoming incorporated more into books of popular science like Behave by Sapolsky is this issue of free will and the role of free will in social systems. I don't like the term free will. I'm gonna try to come up with something better. I feel like it comes with a baggage of assumptions. So what I want to say by that might not be what some of you have in mind. What I want to say is that after I read this book, I started to almost go through a bit of a crisis when it comes to the degree to which I ask myself, okay, is this whole notion of the self, the little man in control inside my head, the notion of awareness, decision making, to what extent am I supposed to be taking this seriously? When you look at what is happening in areas of technology that have to do with human behavior, you will see that entire departments in these IT companies are already operating and making decisions and deploying user interfaces and UX paradigms, almost entirely bypassing the idea that there is a little man in charge in your head. They are very much using behavioral analysis and collecting data and running these studies, sometimes entirely bypassing self-reporting, bypassing the part where you're actually asking the person what they think is happening. So they have found out that they can run efficient practices on the assumption that we are functioning like machines. The most clear case of that is, of course, marketing. And the new methods that marketing people always knew this, but the new methods that they're using in marketing right now is just 100% embracing this. This is important because tomorrow we will talk about systems, and we need to define systems, and we need systems because I believe without a dynamic system approach, it's very hard to get to a point where we can design and engineer change or design and engineer technology products that can enable some kind of change. So all that I'm doing now is trying to prep the work so that tomorrow we are aware of the potential fallacies of us diagramming our dynamic systems based on obsolete assumptions. In a nutshell, what books like Behave make very, very obvious is that the stories that the human beings interact with or they tell themselves, sometimes you'll find this talked about under the concept of sublimation. Daniel Dennett talks about this under the concept of memes, and there are many, many other ways to talk about this. But basically, there's a story that the human interacts with. Then it assumes the story. It starts to talk about itself and the world in terms of the story, and that greatly affects behavior. As an example of this from the book is about this hormone called oxytocin. So it was very, very big in the news, I think 2-3 years ago. It's basically the stuff that makes you feel good. So women are secreting it in high amounts after they have babies. You get it when you are at the start of a new romantic relationship and so on. So all of these big headlines about how this thing is just the thing that makes you feel good, and these are the circumstances that increase the quality, the quantity of this hormone in your organism. And then more and more studies were done, and very interesting things about it started to surface. That was just another story about oxytocin, because in a variety of circumstances that depend on the story, it acts in exactly the opposite way. So if there's a list of situations in which it makes you feel good, there's also a long list of situations in which it makes you feel exactly the opposite. For example, when there were certain types of interactions between people that had as an outcome an increase in oxytocin, when the interactions were between you and someone that you consider as another with capital O, whatever that is for you. So someone who's just not part of my group, maybe an enemy, maybe just like not my family, not my nationality, not my, however you personally define that. The increase in oxytocin and the behavior that resulted actually, instead of creating more feel-good vibes, it did the opposite. And very similar stories are covered throughout the book with all the popular big names, like the effects of testosterone. So all of this is controlled by the story. It's controlled by the narrative that you tell yourself about what you're doing and what is happening. In the context of developing software products that are very much about everyday people using them in everyday life and going into human behavior and plugging into human culture, having some knowledge of these mechanisms and the degree to which they're very relative, I find is really crucial. For next time, we're going to get into systems. So we're going to take all of these directions that we've touched upon today and try to define dynamic systems. And we're going to talk about embodiment and then AI and computational paradigms. So as I mentioned a few times already, the fact that now we have entered categorically a new computational paradigm is relevant to all of these things, way more relevant than if I had brought these things up like 10, 15 years ago, when these things like large language models were not a consumer product. And just to clarify a little bit what I mean by this computational paradigm. So basically, the way I'm thinking about it right now is that the old paradigm, you have a computational device. It has some kind of CPU that crunches things between 1 and 0, and there's all sorts of types of gates that, as I said, allow processors to use these very, very simple things to form a system that is computationally complete. So you can ask a question and it will just churn in this very, very basic fundamental way, churn an answer. And the new paradigm is you still need an answer, right? So the main thing why you're going to a computer is still because you needed to do something for you. You need some kind of answer. The new computational paradigm is that now you have a database of what I call human marks or markings, like human behavior, human language, human talk, human movement, and you throw an association-based algorithm into this database of human stuff, and it comes out with some kind of average. That's an answer. As designers, we have to just cook all of this into a stew and make products that hopefully have a shot at achieving whatever goals we might have.